So
Yeah.
I want to let people know the truth of it. It's going to be awful. You're going to want to quit 75% of the time. You're going to want to punch your therapist in the face like 90% of the time. And if that's all true, that means you're getting good therapy. And number two, you will eventually get the outcomes that you want, but
Yeah.
it takes time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Best You interview series. It's Gary here again. Thank you very, very much, as always, for taking the time to join me today. And today I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by mental health counsellor, cognitive behavioural therapist, co-founder and podcaster Bianca Thomas, who is here to discuss her work in the trauma recovery space. Bianca is the co-founder of the Evolve Ventures podcast and business and is director of therapy for Evolve Ventures Technologies LLC, and is on a mission to help people heal from trauma, build real confidence and transform their lives using evidence-based tools. Bianca has worked with hundreds of clients one-on-one and reached thousands globally through her podcast and has led seminars focused on mental and emotional growth. Bianca was once someone who only looked confident on the outside but lacked it internally, which inspired her to do the deep work to embody true confidence from within. And she's here to share how you can do the very same thing. Bianca, thank you very, very, very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
I am too. I am too. So let's start with your career journey thus far that took you towards the co-founding of Evolve Ventures. What was the key inspiration that led you to that particular point?
I wanted to be on this journey because I desperately needed this journey. I needed the person in my life that I've become because of the absolute mess of a human being that I was for so much of my life. And so when my business partner, my mission partner, Amelia, and I met and we started talking about dreams and we started talking about all of the things that we wanted to do in our life. And after she beat the hell out of me because we did Muay Thai, I think I mentioned that to you when you and I had first met.
Yeah.
We did Muay Thai together, and that's how we met. And she beat the ever loving hell out of me and I fell in love. I was like, oh my god, this girl's amazing.
Yeah.
So we got really close from that. We had very similar like goals and values, and that led us to building it was back then the Why Power podcast,
Right.
and then that evolved into Evolve Ventures. So we built a organization because of our like how desperately we needed that when we were younger and when we were kids. So we wanted to build that for other people.
Yeah, so you mentioned the absolute mess that your life was in at that particular point. You know, sharing the details it's appropriate to share for you
Yeah.
today. What did that look like? How, if I could say, this is my words, not yours, but how low were things for you at a given point in time to get to that point where you say enough?
Yeah. Yeah. So growing up, when I was a little kid, I was a very like happy, bubbly, confident kid. Like I found this journal that my mom kept when I was a baby, and it was like Bianca is like confident, Bianca's a leader, she's like everyone loves her and she just loves being around people. And it was such a shock to me because that's not what I remember from my childhood. What I remember is that was probably true when I was very little. But after around 6, 7 years old, I started to develop some really significant mental health issues. And what I now know is I started developing borderline personality disorder from a very, very young age. So I had no confidence. I had a very low self-esteem. I had no sense of self. I struggled so embarrassingly in relationships. Like I didn't know how to connect with people. And because of that, I made horrific choices in who I allowed into my life, in the decisions that I made, in the activities that I endeavored into. And when I was 16, after years and years and years of having these really negative experiences, I ended up meeting someone, and we dated for 4 years, who was sexually, emotionally, mentally, and financially abusing me. And I actually recently learned that he's in prison for some of the things that he did after we broke up. So that should have been my life, and I'm like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what the world is. I don't know who I am. I don't know what it means to be a person, and this relationship basically like broke whatever was left in me. So I'm 20 years old, and I'm like stunned. And it was around that time when I went to therapy for the first time. I think I was like 18, so it was 2 years before that relationship ended. And it was the first time in my life I ever felt like someone really saw me. Someone really understood me. Someone cared about me past just what I looked like. It was like, oh, this person really sees me, but I was still so stuck in the mud of that version of myself, and of my own trauma and my hurt and everything that was going on in my life at that time, that I wasn't ready to do anything about it. It opened my eyes to the possibilities. It opened my mind to what change could look like, but I just wasn't in a space where I was ready to do anything. So I ended up stopping that therapy, and beep bopping around trying to figure out who I am and what I want, and trying to heal from that situation, but I'm still just ending up in the same dynamics over and over and over again. And when I was 23, I met these mentors of mine who introduced me to personal development for the first time. So I was already getting I had already finished college at that point. I got my degree in psychology, but like I didn't know anything about it. I was like, I was a nightmare. I was a mess. I got the degree, but I couldn't tell you anything about it.
Yeah.
So I meet these people, and it's like, oh, like you can change your life. Like you can change your mindset, you can change the way you see things, you can learn, you can develop grit. There's this thing called mindset where you can have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. I'm learning all of these tools, and I'm like, oh, real change is possible. You can actually change your life. So that's when I eventually meet Emilia, and so we pair up, we start our podcast. My mentors had a podcast, so they taught us how to do everything, and we were off to the races. So we're building our business. COVID had happened at that time, so we just did everything virtual. COVID was horrible in so many ways, but the blessing that we got out of it was starting our organization and starting our podcast. So we're starting our podcast, we're doing all of these things, and I'm facing like the greatest imposter syndrome I've ever had in my life, because it's like I was given this opportunity that I never should have been given. I don't know on what planet you think that I'm good enough to do this, but like I'm not good enough to do this. So I'm like telling them that, and they're like, no, no, it's fine. You're fine, whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just not going to tell you what I'm actually thinking and feeling anymore, because I don't want to be abandoned. I don't want it's just ultimate imposter syndrome, right? It's like, I'm not going to tell you the truth. I'm going to pretend like I can do everything. So I do. And it worked out really well. It was terrible, and it actually almost cost us our friendship, and it actually almost cost us our business, because it came a point where, because my mission partner is a mental health counselor too, and she's way further ahead than I am. She's extraordinary, and she's very savvy in business and all of these things, and we're growing and we're scaling and we're doing all of these wonderful things, but my mental health is still so bad. My sense of worth was still terrible, the way that I saw myself, the way that I interacted in the world, my capabilities, the math wasn't mathing. And she's like, Bianca, we can't do this anymore. She's like, I care about you so much. I want you here, but we cannot do this anymore. So here's the two options of what we can do. And I'm so grateful to her for this, because anyone else would have been like, F off,
Yeah.
go your way, and we're not going to talk anymore because you almost just sabotaged our business. But she didn't. She said, here's two options. Here's the two things we can do. We can either do that option one, and I'm going to love you from afar. We'll liquidate everything. We'll separate everything. You go your way. I'll go mine, and I'm going to love you from afar. Or go get the help. Because I was doing coaching and I had mentors and I was working with people, but on the external stuff, not the internal. I was running away from that for dear life. So she's like, you need to do the internal. And I was like, okay, I don't want to do this, but okay, I'm not ready to do this, but okay. So I did. It was awful and it was painful, and I had to face more mirrors than I ever thought I was capable of, that I ever even knew was possible. But I did the work that I had just gotten my master's degree for, that I was teaching other people to do, because I was working as a therapist at that point. So I'm teaching people to do this stuff that I'm not even doing. So I finally actually start doing the work. I start doing the work that I'm teaching other people to do. I'm building that inner scaffolding. I'm becoming the person that I was trying to convince people that I was, but I like actually became her. And I had to face, my deepest fears, that I'm not good enough, that I'm not that capable, and I'm not going to be wanted if I keep going down this path, if I keep pretending rather than actually doing and becoming. So I go do it. I get CBT, I get DBT, I do IFS, I get all of these treatment modalities that I do with clients, and it radically changed my life. And now I get to actually help people do the same.
Incredible story. Thank you for sharing. There's so much to unpack there in terms of, that crossroads moment where someone you love, someone you respect, someone you admire, someone who has had a significant part in your life journey says,
right,
something has to change. And as you said, it could have just been a case of disappear. You're too much. This is not what I'm
right.
needing. But in the type and style of industry that you're in, that's probably one of the last options it sounds like Amelia would have open to her at that particular time.
Anyone else wouldn't have done that. Any other person, if it wasn't her, sincerely would have been like, go your own way.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, she didn't. I think she saw something in me. Like, she saw what was actually in me that I couldn't see. And the beautiful thing being in this field of work is like, you get to see that in other people. It's like you see in someone what they can't see in themselves. Now, you can't guarantee that they're going to do the work.
Yeah.
But my job is to help them do the work. And her job when she works with clients is to help her do the work, So
yeah.
If it was anyone else, we wouldn't be sitting here talking.
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful for her.
Yeah, and I do love that sentiment that she could see the real you. I was going to say at one point that good people attract good people, but if I had said that to a previous version of Bianca, you would be kind of like, you don't know what you're talking about, man. This is, you see what I want you to see, and 100%. There's a lot going on, and I do understand that. And one thing that, in the earlier stages, you were talking about how horrific the work was. You didn't want to do it. I mean, it's so raw. The way that you explained it was, I actually have no interest in doing this. I feel like I'm being somewhat coerced. I'm not going to enjoy this journey. And by the way, it was really, really difficult to do
Yeah.
that. And, but I love that. The reason I love that, Bianca, is that a lot of people wouldn't explain it in that way.
Yeah.
They would explain who they are today, how they are today, and the benefits and beauty of what that journey has given them, gifted them. You
Right.
know, you explained it saying, this was a nightmare. Like, why, but to, to have that life experience for you, to be able to then see that type and style of resistance, dread, just a genuine negative approach to saying this is going to be difficult, and I imagine you would have an empathetic way about you to say, yes, it is, but you know what? You're worth it. And you know what I can tell you is if you actually do the work and you see the results and you adjust to the information that you're being given at the other side, it's going to be somewhat unrecognizable to the benefits that you can achieve.
Because that's what's real. That is the reality of it. I just something that you said. I didn't feel coerced. I felt called out
Right.
because I knew, like, I had been to therapy before, so I knew that, like, I knew the benefits of it. And the thing that I admire about her is she didn't coerce me at all. I was given a choice.
Yes. Yep.
And so many people, and what I see working as a therapist and working in this field is a lot of people are coerced. A lot of people are like, my partner told me I had to come here or they were going to break up with me,
Yeah.
or my job, or my parole officer, or whoever, right? There are circumstances where people come because some external force is forcing them to do it. But for the grand majority, that's not the case. For the grand majority, what it actually is they finally reached their breaking point. They finally got to a point where it was like, enough is enough. But that doesn't mean that they're actually ready to be at a point to do the work.
Yes.
It was enough to get you to show up,
Yeah.
but it wasn't enough to get you to actually be willing or ready or capable of doing that work. And that's what happened to me the first time I went to therapy. I was in such a bad state that I needed help, but I wasn't ready to do it yet.
Mhm.
Not for real. And then when that situation happened when I was 27, I don't know how long ago it was. I think it was around 2 or 3 years ago. I was like, okay, I actually have to do this time.
Mhm.
I don't want to. And so many of my clients say that. I could like I guess I should start a checklist of how many times clients in a week are like, I don't want to talk to you today. And I'm like, cool. This is going to be a great session. And
Yeah.
they usually end up being a great session, but for the majority of people, they don't want to be there.
Yeah.
They are terrified of what it's going to look like. They're terrified of doing the work. They don't feel capable. They've heard horror stories of therapy because all you hear are these nightmare stories, or you see the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and you think that you're going to end up in a hospital in a nightgown with someone like banging their head against the wall next to you.
Yeah.
You just see these wild examples of therapy, and most people spend their entire lives running away from themselves. So to have to sit in a chair and sit in front of people or sit across the computer from another person and have to actually dive into it,
Mhm.
actually talk about the thing that you've been running away from, talk about the pain and the trauma and the harm and the negative beliefs and the things that you did that you're not ready to admit, because therapy isn't just look at what all these people did to me, it's also look at what I did.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that at all. But there was a part of me that knew that I would have to look at myself for the rest of my life, knowing that I had a choice, knowing that I had the potential to become something and become someone so extraordinary, and I chose not to do it. And I couldn't live with that. I
Yeah.
couldn't live with that choice. And so that made me be like, okay, whatever it takes, the suck, the hard, the pain, the crying myself to sleep most nights, journaling, brutal therapy sessions where I should have went and taken a nap for the rest of the day after, but I had to go back to work. Like I just said I am willing to do it because I need my life to be different. And
Yeah.
it wasn't a fairy tale story of like you see Rocky at the gym and like you just see him like doing all of this stuff and then he's finally ready to go. Like the montage is actually 5 years long and
Yeah.
there's ups and downs.
Yes.
And that's the truth. And that's what too many people, to the point that you had said, nobody shares the reality of it.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
why I feel so adamantly about sharing the truth, because if you don't know the truth of what's going to happen, you can't commit to the process.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I want to let people know the truth of it. It's going to be awful. You're going to want to quit 75% of the time. You're going to want to punch your therapist in the face like 90% of the time. And if that's all true, that means you're getting good therapy. And number two, you will eventually get the outcomes that you want, but
Yeah.
it takes time.
Yeah. I love that. My analogous circumstance to that is in the coaching work that I do,
Mm,
where it's, we're going to have a very good conversation. We're going to talk about things that might be uncomfortable. We're going to go to places that may or may not yield results at a given point in time. We're going to choose different avenues as we're moving forward. But ultimately, the session's going to end and you're going to be the one that's going to be left with the action items for the most part to say between now and next time you are going to start journaling, continue, you're going to have that difficult conversation with that person, you're going to remove that person from your life, you're going to really consider your career options, you're going to really review, what your relationships look like, whatever that looks like, Bianca. And some people are just not up for it. I've never had anyone quit and say, that's it, time out, I'm out. But you have the people that you can see the energy waning, the interest waning,
yeah.
where they're saying, this is just not something I can commit to right now. And I don't mind that at all, to say the timing has to be right. If you're constantly putting it off, then that's a pattern there that we could recognize and talk about in some way. But if you are just saying, I now see, know, understand, and appreciate the level of effort it's going to take for me to do that based on where I'm at, based on my life circumstances, my career situation, my relationship status, whatever that looks like. This is not the right time. I'm going to let's pick it up again in 8 months, 9 months, a year, something like that. It's a healthier way to be, rather than I'm going to get that done and then they're fretting between now and next session. They come back and they spin a yarn about all these magical, mystical things that happened in between that took them away from their action items and such. And we do that a couple of times until I say, right, do you want to have this
Yeah.
actual conversation now and actually see what's going on, talk about the patterns, talk about how things are going, and then see what you want to do. And it's all from that, what can I say? That lens of really, truly, deeply caring about the other person, knowing and understanding, having been the guy that's been there, when I'm kind of like, wait till I tell you all this stuff and I can tell a really good story. And
Yeah.
then most people are kind of like, oh, that's a great story. Yeah, well, we should talk more about that. And you get the odd person that goes, let's just bring it back, Gary. And let's just talk about, you said you were going to, you didn't. And this is the third time we've had this conversation. And I'm like, well, shit. Okay, I guess we're going to talk about that then, are we? And that's the key. And one of the things about the
Yeah.
work, I remember that Lizzo song, and I actually talk about this in class when I'm teaching in class. And the Lizzo song, I can't remember the song, I'm Ready or something like that. But one of the first lines in the song is, I did the work and it didn't work.
Mm,
And what it's made me think of in terms of coaching clients over the years, or people I've been mentoring or just, having a supportive relationship with, is, did you do the work? Actually the work, or did you do some work that was, on the surface, or maybe just a wee bit below the low hanging fruit, so to speak, where you get that opportunity to say, I'm actually really
yep.
genuinely, I'm working on myself, I'm doing the stuff. and it's just not working. It's just not working. Well, then you know what? Maybe that's a different type and style of conversation, a different depth of
Yeah.
conversation. You know, and so in terms of the trauma, you know, it's a bit of a catch-all statement. You know, certainly quite generic. I could say, you know, someone says, "Well, that was traumatic," you know, and what do you mean? I thought that was kind of cool. I thought that was fun. You know, a wee bit scary, a wee bit dangerous, a wee bit, you know, something. You know, like in terms of the trauma space, is there are there logical trauma buckets that are based on, you know, seasons of life or experiences that have been had, and how do you marry in your cognitive support, your evidence based support to align with the trauma?
Yeah. Just to go back on one thing that you had said, there is never going to be a right time to do therapy or coaching. In 6 months from now, in 8 months from now, in 3 years from now, you're going to feel the exact same way that you did today. And I've done this, and I've seen so many people do this. I'm not ready now, but in 6 months I will be.
Yeah.
That is the biggest lie you are telling yourself. And it's a lie based on this idea that you believe you are not capable of doing it, or that you can't communicate, that you need to take things a little bit slower
Mhm.
and inch your way into it. Every single person that has come to work with me and then they're like, I can't do this, and they come back in 6 months, they always say, I wish that I had stayed. I
Yeah.
regret not staying over the last 6 months because now things are worse.
Yeah.
There's never a right time to do therapy. There is never a right time to seek out coaching. There's never a right time to get help. The right time was 10 years ago, and the next best time is today.
Exactly.
Now, when that pertains to trauma is widely overused. I actually I have a Threads account. I don't use X because it's gotten a little too crazy for my liking, but it's a little bit of a nightmare on that app. But I'll occasionally use Threads,
Yeah.
and I put a post up. This was like, I want to say this was like 6 months ago, and I basically said like the top 5 overly misused therapy terms. Trauma was one of them. Trigger was another one. Narcissist was another one. And there was a bunch of them. That is to this day my highest like ranking post
Yeah.
on that. I think I got like well over multiple thousand like likes, comments, and reshares. And my page on Threads doesn't get that much love. Like I just haven't put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah.
But that post did so well. And there was a few people who were like got upset about it. But so many people were like, yeah, honestly, this word too, and this word too, and this word too. Unfortunately, one of the beautiful things that has happened is we have so much more access to resources.
Yeah.
We have so much more access to information. Social media has allowed for so many people to get access to like Me Too stories and to get understandings about what's happening to them and realizing that they're not quote unquote crazy, or it wasn't just them, or information and help and guidance and so many really beautiful things. But with that, we're now getting a ton of people who claim to be therapists, who claim to be professionals, who claim to be coaches. I'm sure you see it all over the place, and they're spreading misinformation.
Mm.
And because of that, so many people are now misusing terminology. They are mislabeling themselves. They are misdiagnosing themselves. And it's causing a lot of harm, because if everybody's depressed, then nobody is. If everything is a trigger, then nothing is. If everything is trauma, then nothing is. And
Mm.
it diminishes the experience for the people who actually are going through that. So, do I think that there are buckets of trauma? There's the two categorizations that so many people have probably heard of, and your listeners probably know this too. There's big T trauma and there's little T trauma. It's more, I like to think of it more like a spectrum than a yes or a no. right? Or like a big or a small. But if you're trying to understand what trauma is any instance, any experience that is so far outside of the realm of normal human functioning that your brain and your body do not know how to cope with it because it's outside of the realm of a normal adaptive human experience.
Yeah.
But the thing that people don't understand is trauma is not just about what happens to you. Because you and me could both have the same exact thing happen to us, and I might have trauma and PTSD after, and you probably might not,
Mm-hmm.
which means it's not actually the thing. So if it's not the thing, what is it? It is the beliefs, it is the narratives, it is the emotions, it is the experiences, it is the resources, the support, the environment, all of these critical factors that happen in the aftermath.
Yeah.
It's what that instance means to you that makes it traumatic. So we all experience stress, right? Stress is in the title, post-traumatic stress disorder.
Mm-hmm.
So a trauma is a severely distressing experience. What makes it traumatic is what you do in the aftermath and what it means, what it does to you, what happens to you. And so what CBT looks to do, and DBT does the same thing, and a lot of other trauma-informed therapies, is to help the person identify, what does this mean to you? What does this mean about you? And what were the things that you did in the aftermath that might have caused your symptoms to be where they are? So I have a client that I was speaking to right before this, and she was severely abused as a child, never experienced real love, ended up in a very misaligned relationship that turned into a 30-year marriage. She has 2 kids, and she's now having severe panic attacks. And she struggles going into stores, and she struggles communicating with people. It wasn't just about what happened to her, because what happened to her was horrific,
Mm-hmm.
having these horrible things happen to her. And what sealed the deal was the fact that she never had support. She never had someone to help her. She never had someone to guide her. So she was basically just in that, being convinced that it was all her fault because something was wrong with her. So now her entire life is framed on that narrative, or on this lens of, I'm a burden, there is something wrong with me, I'm a bad person. So now when she has to go into grocery stores, she gets freaked out because she's afraid something bad is going to happen to her because she's a bad person, and bad things always happen to her.
Yeah.
So we had a conversation, and she comes into the session and she's like, I went to the grocery store for the first time in years. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And she goes, yeah, but it wasn't good. And I was like, why wasn't it good? I'm like, you haven't gone in years. She goes, well, I had a panic attack. I was like, you haven't gone to the grocery store in years. She goes, yeah. I'm like, you stayed? She's like, yeah. I was like, huh, you haven't gone in years. You started your grocery shopping. You had a panic attack. You recovered from it. You continued your grocery shopping. And then you went home and your husband helped you with whatever it was you needed. And that's a bad thing? And she's like, well, when you frame it like that, I was like, that is how you frame it. That's the point. That is what good therapy does. It helps you to see the experience from a more appropriate lens, because when we go through trauma and when we have that aftermath of the experience, it shapes our brain and reshapes our brain, and we are a part of that with how we talk to ourselves, what we say, what we do, what we think, what we feel, what we don't say, do, think, feel, and believe. And then that shapes who we become, and that's where trauma comes from. So what you do in therapy is you help people to actually start seeing the story more clearly. helping you regulate your nervous system and your emotions, helping you to navigate that inner child that's in there that still believes that you're not good enough, and then effectively problem solving solutions to help you start building a new identity today. And that's exactly what I did. And now that's what, evolve. What we do at our organization is really helping people to break those limiting beliefs so that they can evolve to that next version of them and heal from that trauma.
Yeah. I love the framing there. And one word that was coming up for me that that I don't think you mentioned, Bianca, was where does the memories fit in? To
Mm-hmm.
this post event manifestation of their state. Are the memories super creative stories? Is it a narrative that is made up? Is it completely susceptible to being skewed? The memories seems to be almost like the glue that keeps the things together for good or bad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In my master's course, I took a course on trauma, and it was the first time they ever did the course too, which was interesting. So we got like the brand new version of the course. So
Yeah.
it's probably way better now than it was when I was there. But it that is what fascinated me to trauma. So it helped me to see my experiences, and then that's what locked it in for me of, oh, this is fascinating. So he had said, and there was this article that we read and that we dissected, and it actually said PTSD should actually be categorized as a memory disorder rather than a stress disorder or a anxiety disorder, because our brain completely warps the experience, what we tell ourselves about the experience, the way that the experience is encoded into our brain, and then all of the decisions that we make in the aftermath of that.
Mm.
Now, what I do not mean by that is you are not you're not remembering it, therefore you're crazy or you're making it up or anything like that, because tactics like that are actually what's used in law settings, for example, where they try gaslighting the victim into believing that that's not what actually happened to them. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Yeah.
What is happening is when we endure substantial stress that our brain doesn't know how to deal with.
Mm.
Let's say you're going to the gym and you're trying to carry something that you don't have the strength to carry yet. Of course, it's going to crush you.
Mm.
This is the same thing. When we are in an experience like that, our brain doesn't know what to do. So it does one of four things: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Now we know that there's more than that. There's I can't think of them off the top of my brain. It used to just be fight or flight. Then it was fight, flight, and freeze.
Yeah.
Now it's fight, fright, freeze, and fawn. And now there's multiple other ones. And for the life of me, I can't think of what they are right now. But when we endure significant stress like that, our brain is just hyper focused on, how do I get to safety?
Yeah.
And when you're out of that situation, some people, they'll try to run away. That might be dissociate. They might freeze, they might try to attack back, or they might try to do a multitude of different things. But again, what happens in the aftermath, if you're not processing it, your memory gets shaped by the emotion. And then that emotion and that memory gets sealed into your nervous system, and that's what shapes the entirety of your life. So in trauma work, you're unpacking the memories. You're rewiring the experiences. You're building new narratives. You're
Mm.
telling new stories. You're developing new beliefs about yourself. And then you're moving forward from there.
Yeah, I love that, and I do really appreciate that explanation, because I just had that feeling that there's something to it there.
Yeah.
The memory can't just be the memory. And
Mm-hmm.
how much can you genuinely rely on it if it's been parked in your brain for so long, and such. So switching gears quickly to your podcast,
Mm-hmm.
what what can people expect when they tune in?
A lot more of this.
Yeah.
A lot more of this. Amelia and I, we try to have it be a really, really good balance of education and banter between she and I, and like quirkiness and humor. We're both the biggest like quirky like oddballs ever, and it adds so much texture
Yeah.
to the conversation. Like there have been so many episodes where she and I are just dying laughing, or like boo hoo bawling our eyes out. I remember there was this one episode we did about why I hate my body or something like that. It was one of our earlier episodes, and it was when I was still in the thick of everything. And I'm like hysterically crying throughout the entire session, talking about how much I hated myself. And it had gotten a lot of views. It had done really well. But it's a lot more of this. It's she and I really talking about these things that unfortunately too few people are talking about, and that are talking about really.
Yeah.
Most podcasts, most people who run podcasts, and I'm so glad that you're doing it differently, but what I've seen from too many podcasts is they don't talk raw and real.
Mhm.
They don't share the truth. They don't share how hard it's going to be. They don't share how bad it is. They're not going to tell the truth about what they did and what they went through, because they're trying to sell the person on a narrative that they're further ahead, so they'll buy something from them.
Yeah.
And we wanted to do it differently. We wanted to make sure that we were telling people the truth, so that when they leave and they say F this and they go try the other person and they see that it didn't work, they'll eventually come back and be like, so you were right. And
Yeah.
obviously I hate when that happens, because it's like, I wish you didn't have to waste your time. But it's like, okay, awesome. I'm sorry that happened, but I'm glad you're seeing that like this was real. So it's a lot of that.
Yeah, I love it. I love the energy as well. You know, I can tell it's going to be an incredible experience for anyone tuning in to the show. So, as you know, Bianca, this is called The Best You. And what I
Mhm.
do is I take the opportunity to ask every guest, what is one regular practice that Bianca employs to give herself the best opportunity to be the best version of herself?
Getting my own mental health work done. So like therapy for myself and coaching. So I have a therapist and a coach, and I see them both multiple times a week.
Right.
Journaling has been hands down one of the best practices I've ever done. And just not just like, here's what I'm grateful for today, or
Mm.
here's this, or here's that. It's not surface level journaling. It's the deep connection with myself, and helping myself and all these parts of me actually come out and have a voice and be heard, so that you can work through it. And it's one of the foundational CBT tools. It's writing things down,
Mhm.
so that you can see the patterns, so that you can see the cycles that are perpetuating, and that so you can navigate them. So two-part answer. Number one, getting my own therapy and coaching. And then number two, a daily journaling practice.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Before I let you go, Bianca, where can people find out more about you and your organization and podcast?
The best place to find me is through the organization and through the podcast. So like I said, if you guys liked this conversation, you'll get a lot more of this at Evolve Ventures. So you can find us at evolveventurestech.com, the Evolve Ventures podcast, and then my personal social media, Evolve with Bianca.
Wonderful. Bianca, this has been absolutely incredible. I've learned so much. I've absolutely enjoyed the rawness and the openness that you've shared today. Thanks a million for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a really wonderful conversation, which I knew it would be.